Darcy.
Okay.
I'm going to make my 4th of July speech.
What?
You asked for it, and I want to do it.
Okay, but is it longer than 3 minutes?
I will limit it to 3 minutes,
Thank you.
even 2 minutes. So it's very simple.
All right. Your time starts now.
All right. You know how people say the country's divided, and they block one another on social media, and they crusade for extremist laws, and they constantly say, okay, I can't know you anymore because you're a liberal, or I can't know you anymore because you're a Republican. You know?
I definitely do. I'm the mail girl. I read all of that.
Okay, well, I think people should talk. I don't think they should hide, run away, treat the other people as non-people, decide certain topics are off limits, whatever. Purpose of talking, though, is not to convert somebody else to your opinion, because you can start miles apart and talk to the other person, and you can be even farther apart at the end of the talk, but you've still done the right thing. You've acknowledged the other person as a human being. The important thing is the talking. So here's how that relates to July the 4th, right? July the 4th is the very first document, the Declaration of Independence. It's the only one that we all agree on, right? On July the 3rd, everybody's an Englishman, right? And on July the 4th, everybody becomes an American, or at least 56 guys become Americans because that's how many people signed it. So it's our birth document. So on July the 4th, 1776, there's no Bill of Rights, so we can't argue about the First Amendment or the Second Amendment or the Fifth Amendment or the 14th Amendment. There's no Supreme Court decisions, so we can't argue about those, right? There's no legislation because we don't have a Congress yet. So we have these 13 colonies. They have one thing in common. They want to get rid of King George. That's it. They don't agree on anything else. But hatred is a powerful motivator. They despise him. So they're tired of getting shoved around by the king. So they get together to decide, okay, what are the basics? These are just the basics. What can we all agree on as we start this experiment? Because what they were asking for had never existed before. Or maybe it existed in Athens 2,000 years earlier in one city, but Greece screwed it up royally, and they went back to having kings and strongman armies, right? So if you're going to do a new thing, you have to state to the world why you're doing this new thing and why you have a right to do it.
You are not going to make that 2-minute deadline.
Okay, well, give me 3, okay? Give me 3 minutes.
I am still skeptical.
All right, so they say, okay, we believe, and this is the foundation statement for Americans. We believe that there are these rights that you can never take away from any person anywhere, rights that you're just born with. They use the word inalienable rights. And there's lots of them, and we're not going to list them all here in this one document, but there are 3 biggies: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which is weird, right? Who would use the word happy in a revolutionary political document? Nobody did that. They're saying, we want to be happy. It's like they had Pharrell Williams on the drafting committee or something, And then the other 90% of the Declaration of Independence is just a list of all the bullshit that King George did. They're proving that he took away those 3 things: life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. So as Americans, we can disagree our entire lives on thousands of things, and we can fight over all those things. But there are 3 that we have to agree on: life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Otherwise, we're not Americans, because that's the birth document. We're not participating in the experiment. And let me just say, the reason I call it an experiment...
You do not have time for a digression.
I have to quickly do this digression. The reason I say it's an experiment is that only 8% of the world's population lives in democracies. Not that many people followed our example. It's been 247 years. Most governments of the world decided to be something else other than democracy. So we should accept that these principles, these are just for us. We should stop trying to force them onto people who would rather live under different kinds of governments. So this document wasn't written down by God. It was written down by these 5 men who were trying to figure, it had 5 authors. They were trying to figure out what was believed by all 13 colonies. And actually, one of those 5 men was Thomas Jefferson. And Thomas Jefferson wrote this whole paragraph about how the new nation would end slavery because he did some intense lobbying to try to get all 13 colonies to agree to that. And he was amazingly successful. He got North Carolina to agree to it. He got other slave states, like he got Virginia to agree. He got Maryland to agree. He got Delaware to agree. They had tons of slaves in Delaware. They didn't agree on how fast they were going to get rid of slavery, but they did agree that you can't say all men are created equal and then have slavery. But the document had to be signed by all 13 colonies, and shame on you, South Carolina, and shame on you, Georgia. He could never get those two to agree to be, to agree to the Free the Slaves Clause. And also shame on you, New York City and Philadelphia, because the businessmen and the bankers who were making a killing on the Atlantic slave trade, they didn't want it. They didn't want it either. But my point is, the document's purpose is to define what it is to be American: life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. We're starting with those three. So, life. You have to be protected from danger. You should die of natural causes in our country. Liberty. You don't have to answer to a dictator. You can be part of making the rules and changing the rules if you want to. And then the weirdest one of all, pursuit of happiness. Whatever your own definition is of what you want from life. Pharrell Williams. So what are those three things all about? They're all about being an individual. Your right to be different, your right to be your own person, your right to be heard. So you want a government that guarantees that. So here's my idea for how to solve the stalemate that we're in. We take all the topics that we're apparently never going to agree on, never. Abortion, guns, gender issues, the military, taxes on the rich. And we get the most extreme people, the most extreme on both sides of that issue. People guaranteed to never agree on any of those things. And we ask them to engage in a public conversation, but they only have to do one thing. When they're face to face with the person whose opinion that they hate the most, they must say the following sentence: I sincerely wish for you to have a long life, to be happy, and to live the way you want to live without government interference. In other words, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. The three things we all agreed on before we became a country, the three things that made us Americans. If you can say that to your fiercest enemy, I sincerely wish for you to have a long life, to be happy, and to live the way you want to live without government interference. If you can say that, you're an American speaking to an American. If you can't say it, and I guarantee you there are people who will be unable to say that to their fiercest enemy. If you are unable to say it, you're not participating in the experiment. You're rejecting democracy. We don't have to listen to you. Everybody who can say it, we will listen and respond. We will listen and respond. And if at the end of the day we still don't agree, but we've both talked, then we will say it again. I sincerely wish for you to have a long life, to be happy, and to live the way you want to live without government interference. If we say that twice, so you have to say it twice. You have to say it once at the beginning of the debate, once at the end of the debate, and the union will be saved. Democracy will be saved. The experiment will continue. You know all those guys who came back from World War II, the battle-hardened veterans, what did they say? What did they all say? What was the cliche that all those guys said? Freedom isn't free. Why did they say that? Because they were thinking of their dead friends, Freedom isn't free. We have to work at it. We have to save it. Sometimes we have to rescue it. Sometimes we have to die for it. So, watch how many people will not be able to say to the person they hate, I sincerely wish for you to have a long life, to be happy, and to accomplish everything you desire without government interference. Watch how many people do not know the definition of an American, and let's move on without them. Okay, end of speech.
That was...
I forgot to light the patriotic candle.
Go for it. Light that candle, baby.
Be careful what you say.
I mean, I don't even know how to describe that.
Well, I don't know how to describe it or the next movie, so let's get on with it.
It was amazing.
All right. Are you being ironic?
No, it was amazing.
All right. Well, thank you, Darcy.